There are clearly a lot of eyes on Nintendo in the month of June because finally we have official confirmation from them that they will be holding a Nintendo Direct, and we don't have to wait week to week just to see if we will actually get the confirmation for an event taking place that is a Direct presentation. It's from their own mouths. We know to expect it this month, but there is a lot of conversation starting to pop up online around the timing of this showcase. And one thing I would really preface the whole video with is that we know we're going to get one, period, so we can kind of calm down and just wait for Nintendo to officially release it. But it is fun to try to pin the timing and see if you can spot some patterns with Nintendo, and that's definitely what we're going to be doing in this video today, because there has been a couple things recently that could be hinting online for the Direct taking place next week, and I will be totally transparent and honest with you guys. Even in light of these discoveries, or links if you will, online, I will say that I am still, at the time of filming, 50-50 on whether or not it's happening this upcoming week or the week after. I don't think it will be the last week of June, and I'll dive into my thought process around all of that as well. But before we get on the same page with everything, make sure you like, subscribe, and turn on your bell notification to join Sunbro Nation if you're new here. And the two different pieces of information, one smaller than the other, has to do with a couple things that have been spotted online recently, and you can correlate them to some interesting timing around last year's Nintendo Direct. The first of which is the smaller piece of information, is Walmart of Canada Gaming sometimes like to tease things or stir the pot a little bit online with rumors and leaks and stuff like that. And you would assume that maybe there's some knowledge due to like pre-order dates and stuff going live. I'm sure they're not going to ever directly leak anything, but it has been noticed that they basically, a week before the last Nintendo Direct took place last year, that they did tweet out about the June Nintendo Direct and what you want to hopefully see from that Direct presentation. And they just made that same type of tweet this month stating, now that it's officially June, when are we seeing that Nintendo Direct? So that is speculation point number one that fans are noticing online and saying, listen, they did this last year. Maybe there's a chance that they are teasing that it's going to take place a week ahead of their tweet once again, and that is definitely a possibility. The bigger point of information, and one that I do find a little bit interesting, although I am going to point out something of a difference within the dates on these events, but Nintendo Play Tour, or Play Nintendo Tour 2024 was recently announced, and last time that we learned about this event, it was a week before the Direct. And so with them making this post on June 3rd, the idea has come up, is it a possibility that yes, indeed, Nintendo wants to announce some of the games and maybe even have a game or two shadow drop at the Direct presentation that would be playable at this tour that they put on? And I would definitely stress that everything they're advertising being at this event is all existing stuff that we know about, but they do have a Nintendo World Championship NES edition being mentioned, and that's not out until July, but it's an officially confirmed game. So this is taking place from June 13th until September 2nd. And last year, while we got the confirmation about the event a little bit later on June 14th, it was taking place from the 15th to August 28th. So the dates of the event actually are a little bit different there, because it was technically starting on the 15th before the Direct even took place. And the idea with this particular connection is that maybe the Nintendo Direct will take place the week after the announcement of the event. So anything's on the table here with this one, but again, both of these data points are, I would say, interesting to me, but also not really confirming anything in the way of an upcoming Nintendo Direct as soon as next week, although I do think that the timing around it just logically kind of makes sense. And I again think it could be next week or the week after, most likely. But one reason is Nintendo, even when they were a part of E3 historically, they always liked to go last. It was kind of that Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo, and Nintendo would make sure to always kind of have their event at the tail end of the showcase, whatever the last major day was for gaming news. That's when they would go. They like to be last for whatever reason. And Summer Game Fest is taking place on June 7th, and we have the Xbox showcase on June 9th. So Nintendo slotting into something like the 12th, I think would make a ton of sense. Maybe it's as soon as the 11th. We really can look at Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, all as realistic possibilities. Obviously, by the time that you're watching this video, we know it's not taking place the first week in June, because that's already been ruled out. So then it's either Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday the next 2 weeks, in my opinion, because while it could be the last week of the month, that is also the very week that Luigi's Mansion 2 HD comes out. And while it's not off the table for Nintendo to hold an event the same week as that, they probably will want to have their own individual level of marketing and ramp up and promotion just around the game launching, separate from all of these new announcements. Like, why are you going to announce a ton of new first party software for Nintendo, kind of eclipsing Luigi's Mansion 2 HD and promoting that stuff? And that's what people are going to be talking about. You don't necessarily want to do that in the week a big first party game will be coming out. And while there is an argument to be had that Nintendo would maybe keep to more of an E3 schedule and just go last at the end of all of the events, we've also seen them kind of push back their June Direct timeline when they're not a part of E3, because last year when E3 was entirely canceled and they just did their own thing, we saw it on June 21st, more towards the end of the month. So I do tend to like that week of the 17th, and that means it could be the 18th, 19th, or as late as the 20th, as still a strong candidate for when this will be taking place. So obviously, there's a lot of hype and eyeballs on this thing right now. I mean, it's just as clear as we don't know Nintendo's release roadmap past Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, outside of Nintendo World Championship NES Edition. Obviously, that's definitely a smaller fan service title. Like, it's not going to be moving any kind of substantial amount of new console units. And there's just a lot of eyes on Nintendo on what they're going to do through the rest of 2024. Now that it's confirmed from them that we are in a transition year, or at least that they will be acknowledging and confirming the successor to the Nintendo Switch, which really puts us in this odd situation of uncharted territory where we don't know how well Nintendo is going to continue to support their current hardware when they start to shift their marketing focus onto what is next. And that's why this could either be a really big direct with a ton of hype announcements that people want to see, Metroids, Zeldas, maybe even some Mario projects, at least like a Mario Party game thrown in there, if not a Mario sports game as well. Like, it could have that level of excitement behind it and some major franchise announcements, or it could be very obvious that we are in a transition year for Nintendo Switch, and we learn about a few more of those more simple port, remaster, remake type of titles, and that's really all we walk away with. And while maybe there's one or two good announcements, we just have a lot of smaller, lower budget games that Nintendo's kind of pumping out towards the end of the Switch's life cycle. I am more in the camp in the middle of that. I don't think it's going to be the most groundbreaking direct ever, but I also think Nintendo is going to send off what will likely be the final Nintendo Switch focused, specifically Nintendo Direct, with a bang. I do think that they're going to come out with a lot of hype announcements. I'm very hopeful that we get something Zelda, whether it be a 2D game due to some of the leaks around there being a codenamed Edward involved that essentially is tied to the 2D Zelda franchise. Like, it very well could be that is featured there, or it could be the long awaited, absolutely overdue Wind Waker and or Twilight Princess revealed at the event. Metroid Prime, I think, is 100% there in some way, shape, or form, whether it be the shadow drop of Prime 2 and 3 remastered, that it will likely be in a combo pack, or just the look and confirmation of what Metroid Prime 4 actually looks like. And there's even a shot that that's the holiday title for 2024. We have Pokemon Legends ZA, a game that we know that will be coming out next year at some point that we haven't really seen any kind of gameplay at. And while that is typically reserved for Pokemon Presents, we have seen Pokemon sections in a mainline direct. That's definitely on the table to be here as well. I do think there's a solid shot that this ends up being a fairly beefy Nintendo Direct with a lot of good announcements, and I don't think it's going to be the best of all time, but it definitely will be a strong presentation in my personal opinion, and that all ties back to why us fans want to know when it's going to take place. And again, if you want my 2 cents, while there is some interesting things lining up pointing towards next week as the week this could take place, I also think that there is a solid shot that it could indeed be the following week, and we will just ultimately have to wait and see. And I would like to lastly talk about some of the leak culture that's going to happen leading into the Nintendo Direct, because there's some different stuff going around online from different content creators you may be watching, acting like, well, now that this YouTube leaker has been busted, or whoever, employees, contractors, whoever was leaking some of the information as recently as like the Sony State of Play, according to Tom Henderson, actually leaking that whole list online was a YouTube employee. Well, maybe now that it seems like that situation has been handled, maybe we don't see leaks anymore. And the reality is people like Midori, people like Pioro, who is really the person who will spoil a lot of the direct, like legitimately revealing what titles are in it before it goes live. They claim multiple times to not have their information coming from a YouTube backend. And with Pioro specifically, the reason I 100% believe that is that they have talked about projects that we have not known about via YouTube trailers, like Everybody 1-2 Switch, and they knew the price point of the Nintendo World Championship, a game which was not in the trailer in any way, shape, or form. So all of that said, as we get closer to this direct taking place, I will be covering leaks from Pioro and even Midori if she chimes in on certain things, but I'm going to be very clear when we're talking about Pioro leaks that at this point, it's not a question of if it's legitimate or not. It's like a question of if you want to be spoiled or not. So we will have kind of a spoiler title if we do come across these leaks that will be in the direct. And I do think that that's going to be telling when we start to see Pioro post and talk about these things. It's going to be like the week following that they post and talk about these things, because they don't do it like far off from when we actually have the showcase taking place. So stay tuned for all of that stuff. Let me know in the comments down below what week you think the Nintendo Direct is taking place, and more importantly, what games you really hope we see featured there from Nintendo. And do you think it's going to be an over-the-top, exciting Direct that many fans walk away with feeling very satisfied and happy with the announcements, or do you think it will be a more lackluster showcase or somewhere in the middle? So thanks so much for watching the video today, everyone. Make sure you share all your thoughts and feelings in the comments down below before you leave, regardless if we agree or disagree. Also, make sure you like, subscribe, turn your notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.